Good day everyone, how are you all doing? This is Yix here, back again with another video. And in this video I want to talk about two indicators widely used in technical analysis, and that is the MACD and the RSI. So I want to use this to look at Bitcoin's past and then look at its future so we can see kind of what to expect in regards to these two indicators, as they do paint quite a clear picture as to kind of when you look at the parameters, where you expect Bitcoin's price to be, or more particularly where, for example, the corrections, how far they'll go and things of that nature. So those two things are the main things I want to talk about, but also have another look at XRP, have another look at Ripple, what's happening with that cryptocurrency and the company. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Firstly, let's start with something a little bit lighthearted. This was tweeted actually about almost a week ago by Elon Musk. Obviously quite a comical picture with a humble, somewhat religious looking man trying to live a normal productive life, and obviously you have a very enticing young lady obviously trying to tempt him, and that is what Bitcoin is doing. So obviously there's a lot of humor in that. It's quite funny, and it's good to see that Elon Musk has a good sense of humor. But what is it saying kind of between the lines? And in my opinion, and that's how attractive Bitcoin is becoming. It's too big to ignore these days. You just can't ignore it. Wherever you go, Bitcoin is there. I think that's what it's saying. And obviously Elon Musk, being such a big figure that he is, CEO of several big companies now, very high net worth individual. So if he's thinking that, a lot of the wealthy individuals are thinking similar things, as we've kind of proved. The amount of companies that are investing in crypto and Bitcoin is increasing, at a rapid rate. And him tweeting this is one of those signs. It's just getting too big to ignore the attractiveness of Bitcoin, not only as a technology, as an alternative monetary system, but as an investment. So this is only going to increase throughout the year of 2021, during the year of the bull. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to start with, and that is this tweet, which has some underlying messages behind it. Now let's get into the MACD and the RSI. So let's just go back a bit to the previous bear market and bull run. We're going to have to increase this quite a bit to see the green. There we go. So first and foremost, the MACD. So what you see here is obviously the positive divergence increasing as time goes on. But another thing that I noticed was there was only one small blip of red, right? So when it went negative, in between all the positive divergence that we saw. And I think that's quite important to notice. So throughout the entire, the end of the bear market and into the bull market, it was complete positive divergence. So that is one thing we can kind of extrapolate into the future and kind of expect. To not expect, the MACD to go into the red, if only for a tiny bit. Now it might be a little bit more than one little blip, it might be a couple, but that is something very important that I noticed. So throughout, how long was this period exactly? Right, from the previous negative divergence to the top was about 4, or even longer than that. It went past the peak into the obviously start of the bear market, about 448 days, right? So over a year and a bit. of positive divergence. Now they do come in waves. That's one thing to kind of mention, to note, that you've got a small wave. It goes from an increase, an ascending positive divergence, to then descending to kind of get into a new low. It increases once again, and then it descends. So it's not one continuous, it goes in waves of pyramids. Same as you can see here, a wave up and a wave down, a wave up and down. It goes into negative, a tiny fraction, and then a massive wave up starts, but then it descends. So that's one thing to bear in mind, is that it comes in up waves and down waves. But the most important thing that I noticed was the entire bull run was in positive divergence, and it comes in waves. So kind of extrapolating that into the current trajectory. So you can see so far, obviously we had this COVID crash, was a black swan. This is not normal. So you can kind of almost ignore that for the time being. But we've had positive waves. We've only had one small blip of negative divergence, and then we had a massive increase, which resulted in the break of the all-time high. We've now hit $25,000 per Bitcoin, which is absolutely massive. But what can we expect going forward? As we saw in the past, this wave may continue, but then it will obviously go down. It will descend and find a low, but most likely it will not go into negative divergence, if only for a small blip. As I said, this blip might be a couple of bars, but it's unlikely to be anything significant. But during those descends, those wave downs, is when you see the correction. Okay, so that's one thing that is very important to note going forward. Just look at the MACD, and this is bear in mind, this is on the weekly time frame. So on the daily, it's probably going to be a bit different. Right, so that's one thing that I think is very important and that I noticed going forward. So the MACD stays in the positive, but it goes up and down in waves, and it does not go into negative, if only for a little bit. So next thing I noticed is in regards to the RSI. Same thing with RSI, in that it doesn't really go into the negative much. So with the RSI, the midpoint is about 50, and anything above that is kind of seen as going into the ascendancy. You're looking at rallies and things of that nature, kind of positive price action. And with the RSI, so up to the actual bull run, it stays above the 50 level, which is the midpoint. That's the level you want to stay above. And from probably the end of the bear market around here, you can see the RSI. So move it over here. So from this probably signifies the end of the bear market, and as you can see as well, from this level over here, once Bitcoin left this area, you can see here it correlates perfectly to Bitcoin coming out of the bear market, the bear area. Once we came out of that, RSI did not drop below 50. All it did was tap the 50 level several times during corrections, but it stayed above there until the end of the bull run. So as you can see, it starts here. So it starts around here. You can see above the 50. So we tap the 50 level quite a few times, and this is every time we correct down to at least the 50 level and then bounce back. Once we hit that level, we start the next rally. So you can see here we correct quite strongly. It hits the 50 level, and that's the low point of the correction, the lowest part. And then we start the ascendancy. You can see here it starts to increase, and then the peak tends to be around, it tends to be around the 90 level before it corrects once again. So the peak here, 90 level, and then we have a small correction before going on into the next rally. So as I said, the most important things to note is the RSI tends not to go below the 50 level, but it taps it several times, as you can see, and that's during the corrections. So what we can kind of learn from this going forward is, obviously Bitcoin's price is going to correct several times during the next bull run, but when it corrects, it's unlikely to go below the 50. So the closer we get to the 50, the higher the chance is that the correction is almost finished and we're going to go back onto the ascendancy. So you can see, for example, this point over here, which almost hits the 50, correlates to this, the bottom over here, the bottom of that correction. We just broke new all-time high, corrected, the RSI hits 50, and then it goes on the up on a massive rally, and that rally taps the 85 to 90 level, which is the highest point of the RSI, or close to the highest point, and that tends to be a level where Bitcoin is slightly oversold, it's overextended, and it's most likely going to correct, and that's what it did. It corrected down to the 50 level, and again, so it seems the big lesson is the closer we get to that 50 level in the bull run is when the correction tends to be over. And kind of when we use this onto today, so obviously this was the bear market and we escaped this. As you can see, when we went above the 50 level on the RSI, we did dip below this actually 3 times, and this was around the COVID crash, and after we overextended previously when coming out of the bear market. So we overextended, and now currently we've been above the 50 level for quite a while, tapped around the 50 level twice, and now we're at a point where we are at one of the highest points on the RSI. So this leads me to believe that probably there's been a correction overdue, but we are at an overextended level, so there's going to be a correction coming very shortly. As you can see, every time we've hit these levels, a correction is imminent. So again, what we've learned is when this correction happens, we may go all the way down to the 50 level, but that is when the correction probably will end, and that's when the next rally will start. So for the entirety of the bull run that we're in, until the next peak, it's unlikely that we're going to go below the 50 level. So bear that in mind. It's unlikely to go below. If it does, then that would mean it's oversold, and therefore it'd be a good time to buy, unless we are getting into near the end of the bull run, which will probably be near the end of 2021. So there's that time factor that we need to bear in mind as well. So those are the two things in regards to the MACD and the RSI. Very important tools, especially during this bull run, and it gives you a lot of kind of information for the bull run. So let's have a quick look at the overall market. So XRP is still recovering from the massive L that it took in the last few days in regards to the SEC suing them. It actually bounced quite strongly from that capitulation, which went all the way down to I think around about 20 cents, almost 21 cents. It recovered quite well and hit the high of 38 cents, but it still hasn't recovered entirely. Some people think that it will go much further. There's definitely a possibility of that. This could be a relief rally before going even further, but we'll have to see as we close for this week, going into next week. It might be an overreaction from the market, or we might turn around from this point and go on the up. But, you know, 2 articles in regards to Ripple and XRP. So we did see a 24% bounce from the lows of 20 cents, and potentially this could be because of the new acting chairman named at the SEC, who is supposed to be pro crypto. His name is Eli Roseman, and he's taken over at the SEC. And Commissioner Hester Pierce broke the announcement on Christmas Eve via Twitter. She looks forward to the leadership at the SEC. So he's viewed as a potential ally to the crypto industry due to remarks he made back in July 2018 when he called on the commission to examine its rules amid the emergence of crypto assets and blockchain technology. SEC must examine and re-examine its rules, regulations and guidelines to ensure that they are still working as intended to accomplish the SEC's mission. This is most recently manifested in areas such as data protection, cybersecurity, as well as emergence of new investment technologies such as ICOs and blockchain. And this days before the outgoing chairman Jay Clayton stepped down, he sued Ripple, claiming it was selling XRP as an unregistered security, which was 7-8 years after this alleged, violation occurred, which is insane. So let's move on to the next article regarding Ripple. Ripple lawyer says there's one legal question at the center of the XRP lawsuit. As I just mentioned, Alderotti questions why the SEC complaint, which dates back to 2013, wasn't filed 7 years ago. He also says that the SEC didn't provide the whole story. There are no fraud or misrepresentation claims. There is one legal question. Did certain of Ripple's distribution of XRP constitute an investment contract? We look forward to litigating that in court and providing the industry that the clarity it deserves. As always, the SEC cherry-picked and truncated the facts, quotes, etc. Example, no mentioning that throughout 2018, Ripple's XRP sales represented only 0.095% to 0.43% of global XRP volume. And in Q1 2019, these sales amounted to 0.22% of the overall trading volume. Ripple's lawyer also says that the SEC complaint cuts against other classifications made by the US government. And a very strong statement from Brad Garlinghouse. A very important reminder, thus far, the world has heard the SEC's version of reality. The legal process will unfold from here, and the world will have a much more robust and complete picture of the facts soon. And this is in response to Alderotti's tweet. The SEC complaint only alleges. Nothing has been determined. That's what the courts are for. That's it. That's the tweet. Obviously, as opposed to what Twitter and the news are saying, this is even Forbes said this is the end of Ripple. Very strong statements. They may soon eat their own words. We'll find out very soon. So that'll be it for this video. Hope you got some value from that. And see you in the next one. Peace.